Hi everybody, welcome back to Darlingbrough Model Railway. I'm Richard. When you're building a layout, one of the things that you might want to include is a building of some sort. It might be a farmhouse, it might be a warehouse, you might have an entire town full of houses where people live. One of the nice touches about buildings is the ability to include lighting on the inside. This gives the impression that, especially on a night time, lights are on and you can see the lights coming through the windows, and obviously open door, the light comes out of the door as it would in real life. Sometimes the light glows through places that you don't want, such as through the walls and through the roof, and that is called light leakage. Now obviously that isn't very realistic. In my mind, I always think it looks like the house is radioactive and that some sort of weird science experiment's going on. Today I'm going to have a look at a few different ways that this can be eliminated on a model that you're building. So in order to compare the techniques, I've just off camera built up a couple of very basic blocks made out of a bit of card, and what I've done is I've actually cut a hole in one of the sides just to show you what a window would look like. I've just used a piece of white card, very thin, I think it's about 160 GSM. Now I know what you're thinking, oh, I wouldn't use white card to build a building if I'm building a building. Yes, very true. Now obviously if you are building a model building, chances are you'll be using something thicker than that. But I've decided to use the card to illustrate the worst case scenario, because it will naturally let a lot of light leak out. And I want to show you the best way of completely eliminating all of that. In order to light the building, I'm just using a very basic string of micro lights. These are available from the pound shop and they just run off a couple of AA batteries. Good thing about the LED lights is obviously they don't require any external power, so you don't need to worry about transformers or wiring anything, soldering any LEDs up. Everything is basically put the battery in, switch it on, and it works. Also, because the LEDs are on a wire, it's very easy to wrap them into the positions that you want, a little bit of tape, and you don't have to worry about the buildings catching fire because there's no heat, and it's very easy to use. When I place the LEDs into the card buildings, you can see the light through the window, but you can also see the light emitting through all of the walls and through the roof. So in order to prevent the light leakage, let's have a look at several techniques that we can use. What I've done for this particular model is, as it was only a basic square, I have created an internal wall that I'm going to be including in the building. I've also created a roof as well. I have made the walls slightly smaller so that they actually fit inside of the building itself, and I've created a hole to line up with the hole on the outside of the building as well. As this cardboard is a lot thicker, it will prevent the light from leaking out of the walls and also from the roof. Now in this example, all I've done is I've just made a template for the inside of the building and put it in. I've not glued it in or taped it in or stuck it in place at all. But obviously if you are building a building for your layout and you want to use this method, I would recommend that you glue the cardboard in place just so that it doesn't fall out or slide out. If you've pre-built the building, this might be a little bit more difficult to incorporate. With this one it was fairly simple. However, if you have got a building that's maybe a little bit more complicated internally, you might find that including cardboard is a little bit more difficult. Also, the issue is when you come to line up for the windows, you might find it a bit more difficult to align the internal walls with the outside as well, so you might see some cardboard. So with the thicker cardboard, the light leakage has pretty much been eliminated. As you can see here in the dark, the only light that's coming out of the building is through the window, which is how it was designed. No light is escaping from the walls or the roof, which is ideal. Using tin foil, or aluminium foil, or aluminum foil as it's otherwise known, is a very easy, simple and cheap method of preventing light from leaking where you don't want it to. The reflective qualities of the tin foil reflect the light back into the building so that it's focused on the areas that you want the light to actually appear from. All you need to do is basically coat the inside of the building where you don't want the light to leak from. Glue it in. In this case, I'm just using a basic glue stick just to hold it in place. And then that's it. Very simple, very easy. Now, I'll be honest, when I put the tinfoil in the building for this demonstration, I really didn't spend any time or effort. I spent about 2 minutes just to get the tinfoil in. I've actually missed a couple of the seams just on the corners and on the back edge. Because I've done that, there is still light leaking from the building, which as you can see. Obviously, if you are doing this on a building that you are spending a bit more time on, then you would basically go over and make sure everything is completely sealed inside with the tinfoil. It is a little bit more fiddly, especially if you're trying to get the inside of a building with a window perhaps. What I would maybe recommend is if you are planning on using tinfoil before you actually put it together, then you might want to add the tinfoil onto the insides at that stage before you actually build it. It is very effective. It completely eliminates the light leakage, apart from obviously if you miss any seams like I have done. And again, it's a very, very cheap option. You can pick up a huge roll of tin foil which will last you forever for about £1. Another way to eliminate light leakage is to paint the inside of your model. Now, there are a variety of different paints you could use, for example acrylic, emulsion, even spray paint. What I would recommend, however, is try and avoid using light colours. Go for dark colours. That will absorb any excess light and prevent it from seeping through your walls. Paint is fairly cheap, it's very easy to come by. Pretty much every modeller will have at some point picked up some sort of paint. The acrylic stuff you can get from an art store for about £1. Very, very cheap, very easy, and obviously you can get paintbrushes pretty much anywhere nowadays. If you are looking at painting your model, then obviously it will take some time to dry. Now, what I'd recommend is when you do leave it to dry, try and leave it overnight in a nice warm atmosphere, not a cold shed. However, if you do want to speed up the process, you can use a hairdryer. Now, obviously, if you are using a hairdryer, which is obviously a heat source, near a plastic or card model, you have to be very, very careful that your missus doesn't find out that you're using the hairdryer. Otherwise, you'll end up in a lot of trouble. You probably should also watch that you don't burn your model as well, so yeah. The model itself is still a little bit damp because I've not given it proper time to dry. It looks okay, and when I switch the light off, there is very little light leakage. However, there is still some light shining through. It can't be picked up on the camera, unfortunately, but I can see it with my eyes. I'm going to have to invest in a second coat of paint in order to completely eliminate the light. Now, out of all the techniques, painting the inside of the model is obviously A, the messiest, B, involves the biggest cleanup, and C, it takes the longest if you include drying times as well. I also feel that painting a model is the least effective way of eliminating light from the inside of a model. If you are going to do it properly, you'll need probably a good 2, maybe even 3 coats of paint to make sure everything's completely sealed. Now, just for the ultimate test, I've actually got some fairy lights I had left over from the Christmas special, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to plug them in, and I'm just going to basically stick them into the inside of the model and see how well these methods actually work. Now, obviously you would not have this much light going into a building on a model railway or any kind of layout really. This is an extreme case, but I just wanted to highlight how effective the methods I've used are. As you can see from the cardboard, pretty much everything is eliminated. Now, I did miss one seam. I've just realised that when I did this test. But the cardboard really does kill any light that you don't want to escape. With the tin foil, again, this is really effective. There has been a bit of patchiness, but that's down to the fact that I've spent no time whatsoever on sticking it down properly. It's probably areas where there's gaps between the layers of the tin foil. If you did use the tin foil properly and actually stuck everything down nicely, you would pretty much eliminate all of the light leakage from any kind of model. And then the painting, as you can see, it does let out still a lot of light. You can see where the streaks of the paintbrush have actually applied the paint. It will definitely need a second coat, if not more, to actually make sure that it's completely sealed. It may be the fact I'm using cheap acrylic. Obviously, if you are using something better like maybe emulsion or sort of house paint, spray paint for example, that might work a little bit better, but again, it's just a case of playing around and sort of seeing what the results are. Now obviously these techniques only really apply if you are including lighting on the inside of the building. If you're not, then obviously you won't have to worry about the light leakage, the light coming from the inside to the out. However, I do feel it's really nice option to include some sort of lighting as an option so that you can have the trains running, you can have street lights, you can have the lights of the locos running. If you're running coaches, they can have lighting inside. It really does make a nice change to your layout. Now just to show you the difference that including lighting makes on a layout, here is a couple of clips from David Ormrod. This is the layout that he's built running during the day with none of the lights showing. As you can see, obviously there's a lot of detail there and it's quite interesting. However, if we have a look at the night time with all the lights, the layout has completely changed. It almost looks like a completely different layout. Personally, I always feel that if you have the option to run your layout so it looks like you're running the trains at night, it can add a whole new dimension to your model railways, your running sessions, and just generally bring a lot more fun to your layout and to your hobby. So if you run your trains so that it looks like nighttime and you have lighting, it would be really interesting to know as well. By all means, if you have got anything like that, send me some pictures. I would really appreciate them. Send me clips to videos. You can send me all the details either through Facebook, Instagram, email, all my social media channels are up there. It would be really nice to see other people's nighttime layouts running as well. Also, if you have any other methods that you use to prevent light leakage, drop me a comment down below. How would you do it? What's the best method that you have found? What's the worst method that you've found? I think one person on Facebook told me the worst method is to drill holes in the side of the building, which I can imagine wouldn't prevent light leakage very well. So now, I'll be honest, I do think that including lighting in buildings is something that every model maker should try at least once. And it's something that I did when I built my scratch-built warehouse. Obviously you can see the lighting there, and also I've got lighting in the roof there. If you are interested in knowing how I built this from scratch, you can watch this video here, and if you are looking for some more tips, then there's a playlist down here. Until I see you again, enjoy modelling and see you next week.